Bueno, hola a todos. Hoy estamos en otro café en San Telmo. Hoy tenemos la oportunidad de hablar con Shane, un buen amigo. Hi Shane, how are you doing?
What's up, everybody? Hola a todos. Del tipo.
Shane is a US entrepreneur. He's coming from California, and he's living now in Canary Islands with all his family. So, Shane, how is living here? I mean, are you having fun? I see that as
Yeah.
you are a remote worker advocate, you have a very beautiful office, right?
Yeah, it's honestly, man, it's wonderful. We came here with a 1 year plan. We're going to come, and I really wanted to expose my kids to a different way of living, to just show them that there are different ways of thinking, to learn another language, to just make them better citizens of the world, in my opinion. And then 1 year became 2 years, and 2 years became 3 years. And, we just went through a lot of effort to renew our visa for longer. So now it's pretty damn good because we're committing to it. We like it a lot.
Well, I mean, with that view, you can stay here long time.
I'll say, man, the cost of living compared. So just to put in context, I used to live in one of the most expensive places in the world, which I come from Santa Cruz, California, which is about an hour south of San Francisco.
Uh-huh.
And my wife and I had a completely normal house there that is rented for about 5,000 US dollars a month. And here I have an oceanfront 4-bedroom penthouse suite overlooking one of the nicest beaches in the island for 2,000. And so I keep the difference and I spend that on schools and travel.
Right.
It's phenomenal.
Right. Shane, you have developed your career as an entrepreneur, funding several companies, tech companies in California, in many places around the world, and you always have been focusing on trying to do all that work on a remote basis. How do you see the remote working phenomenon in after this pandemic?
Yeah. The remote work, to be really, so a lot of people use that word, but it can mean very different things. So if you look at a company, there's actually a spectrum of distribution. You have traditional co-located companies. Everybody's in one building, in one place. They see each other every day. But the reality is, as companies get bigger, they get distributed anyways. You end up on different floors. You end up in different buildings. You end up with headquarters in different cities. And so for a lot of companies, if you have a headquarters in Paris and an office in Ireland and an office in Shanghai, you're already partially distributed and a lot of your workflows were there. But the pandemic really encouraged a lot of companies to allow work from home. And that's sort of that big change that for a lot of companies opened up. And you're going to see some pretty big differences. I personally wouldn't want to be in commercial real estate right now, renting office spaces. That would be a very challenging business to be in at the moment. But we're going to see an explosion of that. The pandemic showed a lot of companies that were afraid of working at home, that they thought people would just goof off and wouldn't do their work, that's not actually the case, that people can work from home effectively. It also showed a lot of people that sometimes it's very hard to work from home effectively. If you have young children, if you don't have a good focused space, like it can be challenging. You have a new baby, you know that babies and work sometimes are great and sometimes they're hard. So what I think a lot of companies are going to discover is that remote culture is a lot of work. A lot of companies put a lot of effort into their culture, and they're right. A lot of companies, though, just have organic culture by being co-located and don't actually put the effort in to figure out what it really takes to make people trust each other, to make people communicate effectively, to build systems for accountability so that, people can recognize that things aren't aligned and address them. And a lot of the teams that used to work together that all went distributed, I give them a 2-year shelf life. So for about 2 years, the culture that they built in the office should hold, and then it's going to fray and fall apart. And the next generation after that, a lot of these companies are going to have to learn to build a very different culture for remote companies. And that's going to be it's a challenge. We put a lot of energy into it. So as far as how it's going to affect individuals, well, my buddy Nacho, who owns a bunch of co-living and co-working spaces, has always said, if you want to see what happens when people are no longer tied to a geographical place for their cost, for their income, look what happens when people retire. ¿Qué pasa cuando se jubila? What happens when they retire? You know what they go? They go to warm places with good medical care that are cheaper. That's in the United States. That's Florida. That's Arizona. That's in Europe. Canary Islands, the south of Spain, Italy, Portugal, Portugal. Like, you start seeing these places that have affordable cost of living, but still have that first world infrastructure, all the things that people really want. So I personally, I'm putting my money there, but I really think we're going to see a significant explosion here in the Canary Islands of long-term remote workers who are more interested in lifestyle, who value lifestyle, because Canaries have so much to offer. Like, we have that first world infrastructure. We have the Spanish medical care system. We have great private schools, really great private school. I have, let's see, how old are my kids? I have a 7-year-old and a 12-year-old. And the school they're at's fantastic. They're learning Chinese. They're learning French. They're speaking in Spanish. They've got robotics classes as they're learning to program. I mean, really cool stuff. And then the Canaries itself has a few unique value adds. Well, so a lot of people don't realize, but the internet comes through giant pipes. Well, the pipes that cross the Atlantic between the US and Europe, they run through the Canary Islands. So we have some of the best broadband in all of Europe. Like, when I moved here, I was expecting dial-up, and then showed up and I was like, wait, I've got gigabit Ethernet. I used to live in Silicon Valley, and this is 10 times faster than the internet I had at my house, which as a remote worker is a really big deal.
You see that everything is you are saying about Canary Islands as a spot for digital nomads or remote workers, because in that case, you always differentiate that. It's not the same a remote worker that a digital nomad, right? At the end, you are a remote worker because you are not moving around the world throughout different destinations. You are just having your family life here. So you are a remote worker.
I was going to say, a lot of people use the word digital nomad to imply somebody who moves, and that's not quite right. A digital nomad is transient. They go from place to place.
Jumping from one place to another.
I'm just an expat. I'm a remote worker who decided I could live a better life somewhere else, and my family and I went there. Now, if we stayed a year here and we didn't like it, we would have moved. That was fine. But that
you're saying that Gran Canaria has been rising as one of the major or more attractive spots for digital nomads, for remote workers, due to several reasons that you have outlined now. But if we want to be there or keep our position in this ranking, what do you think we need to improve? I mean, what are our weak points? Because at the end, we should have those weak points.
Yeah.
What do you want? What we need to improve?
So there are there are real challenges to being an expat, and some of them are unique to the Canary Islands, and some of them are problems with Spain in general. And you know, they're different. So for the Canary Islands, okay, we moved here, and the first time we went to a shopping mall, it was like going back to the early 1990s in the United States. The mall was full of people. I mean, there were people everywhere all the time. And I was like, and Julie and I looked at each other and we're like, this is kind of delightful and very weird. And we finally realized why when we tried to order something online. We ordered our kids presents from Amazon for Christmas. We ordered them in October, and they showed up in April, just in time for Easter. E-commerce sucks here. If you have a business or if you're personally trying to depend on getting things through the mail, through correos, it's like rolling the dice. They could get stuck in customs for months. And the charges for custom importing can be very significant. So one of the unique challenges to the Canary Islands is everything's cheap here. But if you're trying to buy online and bring things in, it can be very frustrating. It takes a lot of practice.
Yeah. I mean, that is something that we honestly, I as a Canadian citizen, raised and born here, born and raised, I don't understand. Honestly, I don't fully understand this. I mean, I don't know why it's so complex to deliver something to here. I know that Amazon, I know there are some custom issues as we are not within the custom system, regular customs in the European Union. But anyway, I mean, how can be so hard that Amazon delivers, send us something here? I don't know. Toy,
but it's a real challenge. It's stupid, but it's real.
Buy. So honestly, I think most of the people in Canary Island has the same sensation, feeling that, we don't know honestly what is happening with that. I have heard that Amazon will start to deliver all the products to Canary Islands in the following year or something like that. But still, it's something that needs to be.
That'd be amazing if they could get it past customs. Yeah, that would be amazing. But, you know, as someone who was used to same-day delivery, which is ridiculous and amazing, moving to same-month delivery or future month delivery is weird. So that's one. The next, this is, again, unique to Canary Islands. I moved here the same week a friend of Julie and mine moved to Madrid. It took months to get our paperwork done. We had to go into offices, fill out hand paperwork. It was ridiculous. My friend in Madrid went online, filled all his paperwork, had everything approved in a week. The bureaucracy here on the island is terrible. It's poorly organized. Everything's by hand. There's a culture here on the island of face-to-face, which for a lot of things is really lovely. Like, you know, you go to restaurants, people aren't on their phones. They're looking at you. They're talking to you. I love that. But I don't want to have 12 face-to-face meetings with bureaucrats to get my paperwork done. I just want it done and I want it to go away. And so, like, you know, 5 months to set up a business license, you know, like it's just some of the stuff that in the Canaries is terrible. So that's a challenge. There's also a death spiral. I don't know if you know that word, like, one problem leads to another, leads to another, leads to the first problem around setup. So
I understand what you mean.
So, for example, if you want to have a bank account here in the Canary Islands, you need a NIE, a registration number. If you want to have a NIE, you need to have private health insurance if you're not a European Spanish citizen. If you want to have private health insurance, you need a bank account. And they don't care about the fact that it's just a circle of death and it's impossible. And the amount of work, I mean, this is honestly why I work with teams like Edu, because on our own, after a while, Julie and I are like, this is stupid. Forget it. You figure it out. And they do, but the amount of work they have to do to figure out is really silly. So if that's something the Canarian government could fix, honestly, if they really cared about attracting foreigners, it would make a really big difference. Because that experience has sent a lot of friends of ours back out of the country where they're like, they obviously don't want me here. Fuck it. I'm out of here.
Yes, I mean, I think we should be more friendly. I mean, the administration should be more friendly with the citizens in general, and of course, if they want to get talent from outside as remote workers and digital nomads, they have to have methods, processes that should be easy to carry out and to obtain what do you need in a properly timely manner. If not, you have said, the people get tired and go out, and they will leave.
Which I'll tell you transparently, if you're thinking moving here, we did everything ourselves. Looking back at that, don't waste your time. Just find somebody local who knows what they're doing. Pay them the little bit. It's not that expensive. Pay them the little amount of money to just push it through because they've got the relationships. It's worth every penny. So other challenges that are more Spanish, less about the Canary Islands. The non-lucrative visa process is antiquated and just doesn't work well for remote workers. It's a problem. I hope they fix it. Other people are fixing it. Portugal's on fire. United Arab Emirates is just offering tax-free, easy. Like there's a lot. Spain has yet to catch up. They're still making it hard to move here. They need to update their homeschooling laws. You know, like the homeschooling laws in Spain are pretty draconian. They basically don't allow you. They do, but they make it really hard to homeschool. I was expecting the quarantine to fix those. They still haven't updated them. Maybe they will. The taxes aren't well designed. There are a lot of countries in Europe who have a much better offering for remote workers. So things like Spain has a net worth tax. They'll tax a certain percentage of your world net worth. Well, if you have money, and it's a fair amount of money, that's not a small thing when you're considering, even if you're retired, having them tax your net worth is sort of a shitty thing when most other countries don't do that. Edu can tell me I'm wrong. I don't know.
Yes, I mean, net wealth tax is, I think, is 3 countries that they still have that in Europe. I mean, for me, it's always like a sort of double taxation. You know what I mean? And because okay, you get your income, you pay your personal income tax, and afterwards, if you have a certain amount of wealth, you have to be taxed again. So it's also like the inheritance tax. So if your father dies, what you get, you have to pay taxes for that. But well, your father paid income tax.
Correct.
With the remaining amount of money he bought the properties, maybe even he also paid wealth tax.
Right, exactly. So
all of that you need to pay now inheritance tax. I mean,
so Spain, on a taxation perspective, to be honest, Spain is not competitive at all with other European, not for individuals.
Of course, we have the SEC regime. That is 4%.
For those of you who don't understand what it said, ZEC, spelled Z-E-C, Zona Económica Canaria, is a economic development area. They want companies to come to the Canary Islands, and they'll give you a 4% tax rate. It's a big deal.
That's
big
crazy.
deal.
I mean,
that's awesome.
That is the best for that. That is the best tax regime that we can find in Europe. I mean, all with the approval of the Commission of the European Union. I mean, it's something that honestly, if you have the time to look at it and you have a good business idea to be developed here, that's the way of doing it, because you're gonna save a lot of taxes. Shane, what do you? I mean, the remote workers, at least how I see, or maybe the perception that the people has about it, is that are linked with tech activities. I mean, with the technological activities in most of the cases. So we were discussing the other day, remember that. So when you get the correct infrastructure, like co-workings, co-livings, places where the people, this type of professionals can meet and work together, how do you see that this, if we finally reach to a certain critical amount of professionals like that, so remote workers that at the end are living on a permanent basis here in Canary Islands, developing their careers and their work in the technological field, how do you see how I think these persons at the end will be like a force that will help to change the fundamentals of our economics here in Canary Islands. So to
Absolutely.
develop industries that still we don't have now.
Well, I think, and then we're going to wrap this up. I think there's an assumption that remote workers are usually in technology. And that's only because technology was one of the first industries to embrace remote working. So there's a history there. But if I look at my friend group that lives here, Neil's a remote accountant for nonprofits in the United Kingdom. I have another friend who is a remote psychologist, does therapy sessions via Zoom for people all over the world. I have a friend who is a remote doctor who does checkups via, has tools, people check stuff. I think what we're going to see is an explosion across industries. And a lot of the people who move here, well, they're not tourists. They're putting significant investments. They're buying cars, they're renting homes, they're investing in schools. These are significant economic investments that are way more than a 2-week booze cruise, right, that somebody has come by. And I think what we're going to really see that's important for the local is this next generation of youth. Canary Islands has a challenge in that there's a very high unemployment rate among young people right now as part of the pandemic. Right. And part of that is because they've been taught to look for jobs here. Well, if they can learn that the whole world is an available resource for them to find work, then what they really need to do is learn another language. Could be German, could be English, could be Chinese, and then have the skills and values and learn how and where to find that work. And often you do that by modeling. You see people do it, and you think, oh, well, if Jose can do it, I can do it. And then you start to do it. And so we need examples on the island from people they know to then pull their friends up, pull their family up, and join the global economy.
I think a good place to learn that will be the remote conference that we will have with people, right? In September, I guess it's in October.
So I don't know the date. It's shifting, yes. So
okay, Shane, it's a pleasure to talk to you as always. Thank you very much for being here to discuss about digital workers and what we need to do in Canary Islands to increase our competitive position to get this talent here in our home. Again,
yeah, it's an honor.
I love your views.
La próxima vez lo hacemos en español.
La próxima vez lo hacemos en español.
Eso. Bueno.